Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising books, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, new release, The Joy of Cruising Again, as well as other fun, informative global cruise personalities. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests. If you hear about a cruise that interests you, book it at www.thejoyofacation.com or enter to win a free cruise for two. Again, www.thejoyofacation.com. We really appreciate your feedback, so leave us a text. Paul can't reply, but he may read your text on the air.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul. And this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I'm delighted to welcome back Gary Bembridge, the embodiment of the successful Tips for Travelers blog, podcast, and most notably YouTube channel. I have to be careful introducing Gary, lest you think of me as being sensationalistic. I'll just give you one opinion and one fact about Gary. It is my opinion that Gary is the smartest cruise person out there. And regardless of what I think, the one fact I will share is Gary is the most followed cruise personality in the world. I featured Gary and Tips for Travelers in Cruising Interrupted in a section called The Cruise Communicators. You can read all about the development and growth of Tips for Travelers in Cruising Interrupted and listen to his previous visits to the Joy of Cruising podcast, episode 49 and episode 118. Today, we want to catch up with Gary about his thoughts on some luxury cruise lines, including one we just experienced, Explora Journeys. Gary epitomizes the kind of individuals I sought when I began writing the Joy of Cruising books and subsequently the Joy of Cruising podcast. Passionate cruisers who act on their passion in fascinating ways. From a businessman who blogged about his travels part-time to full-time, the most popular cruise influencer, content creator, and knowledgeable cruise resource in the world. Welcome back, Gary, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Paul, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me back once again. Appreciate it.
So how you doing?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, it's been busy. Which is always good. Lots of travel. Great summer, so it's been great.
Good. Well, before we catch up on what's been happening with you, tell the listeners about yourself, where you're from, where you live, your professional background, anything you would like to share.
Sure. Well, I guess as you already said in the intro, I run Tips for Travelers, which I'd set up originally way back when YouTube first started, but I was working full time. I had a corporate job working for Johnson & Johnson, like a global marketing job, but I sort of set it up because I was really interested in just YouTube, and at the time I was also doing podcasts. But I really started focusing after I finished full-time work, and about 2018 is when I really sort of started focusing on Tips for Travelers. It was doing well, but I thought I'd really kind of focus. So I sort of dialing back, I grew up in Zimbabwe, but I live in London. I've lived in London since the early sort of 1980s. But as I mentioned, I had a global job. So I was traveling a huge amount with that job, but I'd always stayed based in London, even though I was working in the US, in Asia, and so on. I stopped full-time work in about 2012. And as I said, I was kind of doing podcasts and YouTube, and then I really focused on 2018, Tips for Travelers, and it just really kind of took off from there. So I think having a marketing background helped a lot with me build the YouTube channel, because I really focused on who is it for, what do they want, that kind of stuff. So that definitely worked for me, I think.
Curious, do you get back to South Africa?
I haven't been to Zimbabwe probably since about 2004, 2005, something like that. Last year I went to South Africa on a cruise from Cape Town on Silverseas. I did a cruise around South Africa, so that was pretty good. Yeah.
Wow. So today I wanted particularly to speak with you about Explora Journeys. Mm-hmm. We were so swayed by our experience on Explora 1 that when I found out you were sailing the identical Explora 2, I wanted to hear your reflections, because you know from our past conversations what I think about your thoughts on cruising. So In fact, when I was on Explora, I said, I wonder what. I even said to my wife, I wonder has Gary been on Explora and what he would think about that. So let's start with talking about your time on Explorer 2. Give us all of the details.
So I did a 10-night cruise out of Barcelona down to the Canary Islands. So I had quite a few sea days because I really wanted to get to experience kind of Explorer journeys, the ship and so on. So obviously I was very keen to get on because, it's had a lot of hype. Although I have seen in more recent times kind of people who become a less enthusiastic, I guess is the way of putting it. And I think a lot of that was interesting because, a lot of people have cruised Explorer when it was sailing very under capacity. It was sailing kind of anything between 30 and 75% capacity. When I was on, it was 750 passengers, which I think is probably about 75% sort of capacity. I mean, I think what's interesting about Explorer is they sort of need to settle a little bit on where they really are positioned. For me, they are positioned kind of in the small ship luxury space. So I think I see them very much as a competitor, and a very strong competitor for lines like Oceania, which is about a 1,200 passenger on their newer ships. Viking, which is sort of 930, so about the same sort of size. And to a lesser degree, you've got Windstar, Azamara in there. But I see them really as, a good alternative to Oceania, Viking, with some differences, which I'll get to. I mean, I think they see themselves, certainly when they came out of the blocks. So when they first came out, I think they saw themselves very much as competing in ultra luxury space, so against the seaborne Silverseas. And a big clue for that was when they did their, status matching. All the lines that they were status matching with were the ultra luxury lines. But I see them much more as a luxury space, partly because of the size of the ship, and the overall kind of service levels, the inclusions, the exclusions, and so on. So I think what impressed me I'll tell you what impressed and what I thought was less good. So I thought the ships were very beautiful because obviously they're custom designed, custom built. The Aponte family, because they don't necessarily have to worry too much about shareholders and corporate whatever, balancing the books always. So they have put a lot of money into it. The ships are very plush. They're very comfortable. They feel very spacious. The cabins are a great size. Even from entry-level cabins are great. The great size. I like there's quite a good range of dining options. I will be interested to see how long Anthology lasts, which is the €140, sort of Italian tasting menu. It seems very expensive. And it's fine. I don't know. Did you and your wife go to Anthology or no?
No. We went to all the specialty restaurants, but
Right, so Marble and Sakura and so on. I think that's exactly.
I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say we passed on Anthology. To be honest with you, it seemed like it was a misfit. It didn't.
I agree.
The only people I know, I shouldn't say the only people I have spoken to who have tried Anthology did so because they had credit, onboard
Exactly.
credit.
Exactly. That's the only people I paid for it because I didn't have onboard credit. But you're right. Everybody else went because they had onboard credit. And when I was there was only 7 tables there. So I'd be interested. I can't see that really surviving. It does seem a little bit crazy. And it's quite a nice venue. I feel they could do more with that. So I liked, to your point, the range of dining. So you had the steakhouse, Marble, which was pretty good. I love Sakura, the Asian restaurant. I love the fact that was also open on, I always forget the way around it. It was open on port days and then Mediterranean Yacht Club is open on sea days. So I like that. I thought not having a main dining room, but moving between the Fil Rouge and the Mediterranean Yacht Club was good. Although what we found as the ship has got fuller and fuller, it becomes more challenging because those venues are relatively small. And I think they probably underestimated the fact that they were going to attract as many Americans and Brits as they're probably attracting, who kind of tend to dine early. So certainly I know when I was on, they were starting to recommend you book for those rather than just pitch up. And I know talking to people subsequently, when the ships are fuller, if you don't book, you don't get in until later. I really liked, though, and I think it's a big opportunity for even the ultra luxury lines to look at, is the buffet or the market the marketplace they have. I mean, it's a beautiful venue. All the stations there's such a wide range of stations. They're all kind of more food hall concept. And I like the fact that all the food served, very little of it is help yourself stuff. And I really like that it was open in the evening. This is also why the little bit I see them as being in the luxury space, less the ultra luxury space. Ultra luxury has no buffet dining option in the evenings, which I think is a huge miss, because I think modern travelers want that, particularly on a port intensive. But it was such a nice opportunity to go to that in the evenings because the food was excellent. I think, so I think from a dining perspective, I quite like the range. I thought what was a miss was entertainment. Now, it's interesting, when they first started, entertainment was very low key, and they're slowly realizing that people are more demanding of entertainment. So, that's an area which is not great. And I think particularly for the size of the ship, and I think the type of passengers, I think they will expect more entertainment overall. And so entertainment was pretty weak. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. The other thing, which at the moment is weak, but it will evolve, is itineraries. So they're very focused, obviously, on the Mediterranean and the Caribbean, because that's where MSC is strong. And even talking to people from Explora, they're saying, look, kind of that's where we're focusing, because that's what we know. But obviously, as they bring out 3, 4, 5, and 6, you can see they're starting to expand. Like they're doing the Arabian, the sort of Arabian itineraries. They've announced Alaska, some Asia itineraries. So clearly, ability to expand. I think what's going to be very. Sorry.
Let me jump in, Gary. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Explorer 3 out now, or is it getting ready to come? It's not out yet.
Not yet. Not out yet. No, it's next year. It's
out. Really?
And that's going to be their first. All the other ships are LNG, and they're bigger ships, they're longer ships, because they have to be longer because of the LNG tanks. But what's interesting, they're not increasing the amount of cabins, whereas most LNG when lines have gone to LNG and got bigger, they've brought more cabins in. I think what's going to be very interesting, though, Paul, is the whole family thing, because obviously the Ponte family, who own MSC and Explora, are very pro-family, and they obviously have the kids club, and they on the new ships are going to have 2 kids clubs, so they go even younger and older. They are attracting quite a lot of families, increasing amount of families, particularly from European families, and certainly. I had quite a lot of kids on my sailing, not huge amounts, which were not massively disruptive, but certainly in dining rooms and some of the entertainment, they were a little bit disruptive. And certainly talking to people who've been in prime school holiday period, kids and families is quite a big part of, they're attracting quite a lot of kids and families. So people who have families who want a more luxury experience, they don't have many options. But now they have Explorer Journeys because it has a kids club. Whereas if you go on Oceania, you go on any of the ultra luxury lines, other than Crystal, which has some kids clubs they run at very peak times. If you're a family who want to go luxury, this is a great opportunity for you. And that's going to be interesting to see, because a lot of people, when I went on, they'd expected an adult-only experience. And they were like, oh my God, these kids, and they're screaming at afternoon tea, and they're running around during the live music and stuff. So that's going to be interesting to see where that all settles down. So...
it appeared to me that they are trying to carve a little niche as the family-oriented luxury, although clearly I think they think of themselves as ultra luxury, and you don't. but I saw, for instance, they're very nice, as you'll probably get to, the infinity pools and these rectangular shaped hot tubs, and they have at least one, because we tried to go in it, at least one that is exclusive to parents and kids, which I thought was a neat touch. I'd never seen that before. And I like that because, to be honest, I'm not looking forward to going in any hot tub with a bunch of kids in it.
We'll be right back.
Do you have a dream car? Mine is the Lucid Air. Are you intrigued by electric vehicles? The Lucid Air EV has been called the best driving car in the world. And the Lucid Air Sapphire is certifiably the fastest production car in the world. Listen to Lucid Driver Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts or at luciddriver.buzzsprout.com.
No, and it would be interesting to see, because certainly when on my selling, the kids were in all over the place, other than one area which was an adult-only area. There was one little point the deck, but kids were in and out of all the different pools, because you're right, there's lots of pools dotted around the place and hot tubs dotted around the place. So when I was on, I didn't notice specific adults and parents and kids one that I can remember, but maybe that I just missed that.
Yeah, it's in the what's the big main spot? What's it called? The big pool. I think it has a retractable roof. Is it the conservatory?
Yeah.
It leads right into the Emporium Marketplace.
Right. I'm trying to think what it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but I know the one you mean. Yeah. There's the big bar just before you go in to the marketplace. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, right there is the one that was a exclusive parents and kids.
Right. Because you've got the two long hot tubs on either side. Right. Yeah.
Yep,
okay.
So
that's right. There was a lot of kids in one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I remember. Yeah. But you know what I mean? What's interesting that, these ships are very clearly designed for warm weather. There's lots of little nooks and crannies, and lots of hot tubs and stuff dotted around, which is rather nice. Also, what was quite be interesting. Although I was skeptical, but a lot of people were using it because we've got the outdoor gym area, which I was very skeptical of, the bikes and the rowing machines and stuff. But a lot of people were using it because you're on a hot setting. I was quite surprised. I thought it was a gimmick, but actually quite a lot of people liked it. So there's kind of those sort of modern touches. I think also what's going to be interesting is clearly because of their MSC sales force and structure is it's definitely a more cosmopolitan and international than the competitors. It's attracting, so also from a European perspective, it's, if you're a European resident, it's quite appealing because now you are going to have a much more I was going to say multilingual, but it's interesting because they only do everything in English, but a much more cosmopolitan kind of group. And certainly when my selling, we had lots of, French and Italians and Germans and stuff. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see where they settle down. I mean, I think the other decision they made, which I thought was interesting, is they made a decision to recruit a lot of, crew from the hotel industry rather than from cruising. And it was quite interesting because I was still on relatively early, and some of them were struggling with the 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. And they hadn't, I think that's going to be interesting as they get more literally their sea legs and how it all works. So that's going to be interesting to see where they eventually do recruit from, because I'm not sure that entirely worked as well, because, it's a new line, new ships, lots of people who hadn't worked at sea before. So that was kind of interesting, but yeah.
Yeah, we had an interesting conversation with a bartender. He was from India, and he worked at the largest hotel or most exclusive hotel in India. And so he typifies what you just talked about, how they recruited from the hotel industry. Now, when I talked to him, I went on, I guess it wasn't that long ago, maybe early spring of this year. They were still pretty new. And we only had 650 on our ship. So they still were sailing at very low capacity sailings. And he was delighted. He, of course, one person can't tell you the story of everybody, but he loved being there, and they had a very thick. If you remember, he was at that main bar. What's it called?
Right. Yeah.
And it looked like
it
looked like a boutique hotel bar, and they had a very thick drink menu, and he said many of the bartenders that they hired had submitted entries for that book. So he had all good things to say. We'll see what his experience is as they increase capacity and so on.
Yeah. What was also good is they had, unlike some lines, when with Starlink was very good, and they didn't limit the number of devices you could connect, which was interesting. So it'll be interesting again as it gets fuller and bandwidth becomes more of a challenge, whether they move away from that. But it was great. as many devices. Most of the lines that give you one device or two devices per cabin or whatever. So, and you have to pay to get the streaming. Whereas there, it was you got streaming, you could use your VPN, etc. It wasn't an extra charge, which I liked a lot.
So, what was your overall verdict of Explorer?
I mean, I did like Explora. I didn't put it on my top 5 list, as it were. Not that I had to have a top 5 list. And I would like to go back, which I did have something booked, but I had to cancel it because some other stuff came up. But I would like to go back on that once it's bedded in much more and really see, when it's selling full, and to see whether they've kind of really ramped up the service and stuff. But yeah, I really liked it. It's a line that I can see. I can see doing really well. People are very enthusiastic about it, and I do think that as I just want to see it now when it's got more in its stride, and they've sold out the how do they manage the dining thing? Is their service top notch when it's full? That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned your top 5 list. I guess it's been maybe a couple of months ago, did a podcast where it was just something fun to do. I listed our top 10 cruises of all time. And Explora Journeys did make my top 5. I did top 10, but it came in at number 4. So,
okay.
Yeah, so we were, and now, unlike you probably do luxury cruises once every couple of months. This was our first ever luxury cruise, with the exception of, I consider Ama Waterways River Cruise a luxury experience. And other than that, this was our first small ship, our first luxury ship. And it came in solidly at number 4. By the way, Ama Waterways came in at number 1.
Right.
So
they're very strong. I agree. Yep. Yeah, they're very, very strong. Yeah.
So now I think your most recent cruise was also on a luxury line, Silverseas, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So good time to talk about that and maybe contrast it with Explorer. Talk about that.
Sure. So I'm sort of at the moment on the channel, going back this year and revisiting a lot of the ultra luxury lines, because every year I sort of have a focus, and that's so I've been on Crystal, and then I was on Seabourn last year, and then so I was back on Silversea, and also one of the reasons I went back on Silversea was I wanted to try their new ships, because they've got new ships out, Silver Nova, Silver Ray, which are significantly different to their existing fleet and significantly different to anything else that's out there in cruising. They have like an asymmetrical design, which means that the ships, normally the pool is slap bang in the center of a ship. So, with the weights, it's balanced. They've actually found a way to have the pool off to the one side, which is great. And the inside of the ship's very kind of unusual. So my real goal was to go back on Silverseas and try the new class of ship. And I did, what I also try and do, particularly when I go on more ultra luxury lines, is I try to go on repositioning cruises, because obviously ultra luxury is very expensive, but repositioning is a much more cost-effective way of doing it. And I did a reposition which went from Alaska to Japan. So it was 18 nights, just one port in Alaska. Then we had a whole bunch of sea days, 6 sea days, and then 8 ports in Japan. So the main goal was to try that. And I was very impressed with Silver Nova. It's interesting because Silversea, unlike some of the other ultra-luxury lines, and certainly even versus, say, Oceania or with Explora, which have basically the same ships, they have 4 different classes of ships, which are quite different. So based on which ship you go on, you have a kind of a different experience. With Silver Nova and Silver Ray is sort of kind of the next, clearly where they see the next generation of ships. It's very contemporary, it's very modern. The decor is quite different to the other lines, which are a little bit dark. Other ships are a little bit darker. It's a bit kind of lighter. They have the same venues, but they've all kind of been reimagined. So I really like the ship. Your service is very, very high. There's more inclusion. So again, come back to the point about why I see, say, Silversea more ultra luxury than Explorer is. First of all, that's quite a big ship for ultra luxury. It's 700 passengers. Most of those ships range between 300 and kind of 600. But the crew per passengers almost very, very high. It's even higher than it is on Explorer. Service is very, very personalized. Food is kind of a notch up. There's more dining venues, for example. Entertainment's a little bit notched up. You have a butler, no matter whether you've got the entry-level cabin or the biggest, the kind of the biggest suite. All your drinks are included, that kind of stuff. So I was very impressed with their new ships. A lot of people were never sure after the Lefebvre Video family sold Silversea to Royal Caribbean, whether it would kind of be dumbed down. In reality, Royal Caribbean put a lot of money into Silversea with the new ships and so on. So I had a great time. It was a great itinerary. Really enjoyed the ship. It was very different. So that was good. Yeah.
How would you compare? I thought the food on Explorer was hands down the best I had ever had at sea. Compare the food between Explorer and Silversea. I understand they're slightly different classes and slightly different capacities, but again, that was Explorer was my only experience on a luxury cruise.
Yeah.
Compare the food between the two.
I mean, there's not a massive difference, because once you get, if you move up kind of from the premium lines, Celebrity, Holland American, there's a big, as you say, there's a big leap up in kind of food, partly because you're paying way much more and the budget's much bigger. So there's the quality of everything, from the quality of the fruit is higher, the quality of the salad's higher, more choice, etc. So I would think Explorer, if you look at Explorer food, it's very comparable to, say, Oceania food, which is also very strong, and Viking food, which is pretty strong. Once you get into Silversea, it's kind of a little bit notch up. So you'll find the menus are much larger. There's actually more choice.
Okay.
The menus are much bigger, so there's more choice on the menu, and there's more venues that you can go to, basically. So it's kind of ramped up a bit, more choice.
Okay.
And you'll have things like on Silversea, you can have caviar included as much as you want. So there's kind of stuff like that's kind of elevated a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I recall on Explorer they had some caviar infused dishes, but they didn't. It wasn't like nonstop caviar whenever you want it, like on Silversea. Yeah.
But I mean, if you say the difference, like to your point, Paul, is the difference of food, say, between an Explorer or an Oceania and, say, Holland America Celebrity, which is kind of the next group, is a massive leap. Probably the leap once you go from Explorer to a Silversea or a Seabourn or Regent is not as massive. Kind of they're kind of closer, if you like. Yeah.
Sure. Hey, you said a word, in past episodes. I think even in the introduction today. I consider you kind of like a college professor of cruising. I learned so much when I talk to you. So you said a word or phrase, repositioning cruises. Now I know what that is, because I took my only Virgin cruise was a transatlantic, and it was much cheaper than I could have sailed Virgin to somewhere else that wasn't as long, and that's because it was a repositioning cruise. And so I try to tell cruisers to look out, to save money, look out for repositioning cruises. Give us a minute-long lesson. Tell the listeners, what are repositioning cruises? Okay. Let them hear it from someone who can articulate it much better than I can.
Well, hopefully I can. So I mean, a repositioning cruise at the beginning and end of the key sailing seasons, the cruise lines have to move their ships. So if you say, the Caribbean season runs, over the kind of the winter, so it runs sort of October, November time to about March, April time. So they have all these ships in the Caribbean because that's where people want to cruise. At the end of that season, they send most of the ships in two directions. They'll send them to the Mediterranean and Europe, and they'll send a whole other bunch to Alaska. So that's repositioning. So they're repositioning the ships to new regions, new home ports. But also you'll find that there's another whole big repositioning when cruise lines move ships down and to and from Asia for the Asian season. So, for example, the one that I just did on Silversea is when they moved all the ships from Alaska Alaska, but instead of them sending back to the Caribbean, they're sending them across to Japan to do Japanese season and an Asian season. So there used to be, before the Suez Canal closed, because you couldn't sail, there'd be a big reposition where some ships went from the Mediterranean through the Suez Canal into Asia and down to Australia. But the bulk of repositioning cruises are transatlantics. So they're moving, sort of October, November time, they're moving from Europe down to the Caribbean. And then sort of Aprilish time, they move from the Caribbean to the Mediterranean. That's, in terms of numbers, that's the biggest. But there's still that one up to Alaska. They are, most people don't want to do them because, first of all, they're out of peak holiday time for most people. Secondly, they are, there's lots of sea days because the cruise lines, they'll throw a couple of ports in the beginning or maybe at the end, but they want to get their ships into the season, into the new region so they can sell them as, for top dollar kind of thing. So they don't have any ports. The weather is very unpredictable because you're leaving effectively the down season, you're going at shoulder period. So you're leaving one region as the weather's not getting so great, going to another region where the weather's just starting to kick in. So you can have kind of not great weather as well. So that's why they sell them cheap. Because they're not high in demand. Where you do pay a lot of money for them is when new ships come in. So, for example, when they brought in Norwegian Viva, for example, it came out of the shipyard in Europe. It did a little short Mediterranean season, and then when they did repositioning across to the US, to the Caribbean, there was huge demand because these are big, new, sexy ships that everyone wants to try. But generally speaking, they're cheap. So it's really good if you want, if you've only ever cruised in an inside and you want to go on a balcony, or you've only the balcony, you want to try a suite. For the same amount of money, you can upgrade the kind of cabin, or you can try a line that you've never tried before, an Explora or a Virgin or a Viking or whatever. So a lot of people use them to try lines that they could never normally be within their budget, basically. I use them a lot, as I mentioned. I use them a lot, to go to ultra luxury, or to try new ships, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, that one Virgin Transatlantic we did was so relatively inexpensive. However, it came with one of the drawbacks that you mentioned. The first 8 days were sea days. And, my wife, that was fine for me, but not for my wife. After about day 5 or 6, she's like, I need land. So that was just too much water for her.
Yeah. And also because, the cruise lines, some of those cruise lines aren't used to running long sea day sailings. So they don't, from an entertainment perspective, they're not always that chock-a-block. So I think on the one I did with Silverseas, like ultra-luxury lines don't have a lot of entertainment anyway, because they don't have but basically I didn't have to look at the daily program because I knew at 11 o'clock at something there was a talk, at 3 o'clock was bingo, at 4 o'clock there was trivia, at 5 o'clock it was very kind of sort of repetitive, if you like, but yeah.
Yeah, I became a trivia aficionado on that transatlantic, and I prior to that, I never really got into trivia, but I was into trivia like big time on that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anything else about your Silverseas cruise?
I don't think so. I don't think anything offhand. No.
Okay. So it's been over a year since we chatted, Gary. Catch us up on highlights of other cruises that you have taken in that time.
Well, I've done quite a lot. I think since we last talked, I've been to Antarctica, which was on Silversea, and South Georgia. I've done the Panama Canal again, which I'm obsessed with. I've been to Japan. I was just back from Japan, but I did a much longer. Japan to China, Crystal. I've been on Paul and Carol, which you've had on recently. I guess Paul and Carol love to travel's group cruise. I tried the new Sun Princess, the big mega ship. I've been back on European rivers with Avalon. So yeah, it's been quite busy and some quite exciting trips. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned now you've done in that time. Did you do your first group cruise?
I've done 2 group cruises, and I'll have a third one in January at the start of next year. Yeah.
Okay. How will you? We'll talk about your January one when we talk about the future. But how'd your group cruises go?
Yeah, no, they're very good. I mean, I have maybe a slightly different approach to some people, as I sort of cap my cruises because I want to make it get a chance to really kind of interact with people. So I cap them at kind of 70 people, which is still quite a lot of people, but I found that's optimal. And also because demand is really high, with the group cruises, I've made them only open to people who are kind of patrons and channel members, just because demand is so big. So I put them on sale for that group. They sell out for that group, so that they never kind of go public, as you were. So I did Holland America, Caribbean one, kind of to try it out. Then I did a celebrity Canada and New England one, which really was really popular. And then my next one is Holland America, Panama Canal. Yeah. But yeah, they went really well. I mean, there's a lot of work and they're quite tiring, but it's a way of kind of giving back to the community, really, is the way I see it. Yeah.
So you say your next one is Holland America, Panama Canal?
Yes. So it's a 15-night from Miami to San Diego.
Okay. So we were going to talk about that when we talk about the future, but that hits close to home because my literally next cruise is Holland America, Panama Canal. Yeah. What ship is yours?
Zaidam.
What is it?
Zaidam.
Okay. Yeah, we're going on the Rotterdam. This will be my first time to Panama Canal. It sounds like you've been several times and you loved it.
Yeah. I think I've done Panama Canal 4 times and I'm doing it twice next year.
Okay.
I'm slightly obsessed with the Panama Canal, yeah.
Yeah. So any tips, any tips for travelers? For us going to the Panama Canal for the first time?
Yeah. So I think on the Rotterdam, you'll be going through the new locks because I think Rotterdam's too big. The Pinnacle class, I think, is too big to go through the old locks. So I think you'll be going through the new locks. You'll get a chance to see the whole new setup. So I mean, the big tip that I would say for that day is be ready because it's a long, tiring, sweaty, hotty day, but it's quite amazing. I would say the first thing is go to all the talks and lectures about it. Also read about it before if you can, but go to all the lectures to really understand kind of the history and quite incredible history behind the Panama Canal, which I guess you'll hear both the original canal and the new canal. The second thing is to really make sure that you understand what the line is doing. Now, Holland American, I think, certainly on things like the Zeta and the Vista class, and I think I've seen it on the Pinnacle class, is you can get out on the front of the ship because the best way of seeing the locks is out on the front of the ship. So I've been out on some ships where you can only see the front of the ship through glass, and that's less good. So early morning, because are you going from Miami way? You're going that direction. Yeah.
Yes.
So you'll get into the Gatun kind of lake area, or I think it's Santa Clara, if I can't remember the name of the first lift. But you'll get in really early in the morning. So be ready to be up like 6, 7 in the morning, claim your spot in the front of the ship, and and just be outside as much as you can. But also, a lot of people spend all their time in the front of the ship. But once you get into the locks, it's worth then going to the back of the ship, promenade deck, and seeing it up kind of up close. But it is kind of quite a long day. So I made the mistake. I made the mistake once of putting lots of sun lotion on, wearing hats, and it's interesting to realize how hot it is. It's very sweaty, but I'd left a small strip on the back of my neck, I guess, and I got really burnt on there just because it's so.
Oh wow!
So it's kind of pace yourself a bit. Also, what's important is once you get through that first set of locks, and you get into the lake, that's a good time because the stretch of the lake is quite long. That's a good time if you're going to have some downtime or have something to eat or go to the gym or whatever you want to do. That's a good time because then again, once you get through the lake, it then is quite busy heading through the second part of it. But yeah, it's an incredible experience. It's amazing.
I'm certainly looking forward to it. Let's talk about tips for travelers. So what are you covering these days at Tips for Travelers?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, what I tend to do looking ahead and planning my trips, like I'm planning most of 27 now, is thinking around kind of what do I want to focus on, gaps, what I need to review. So this year I've focused, as I mentioned, revisiting all my river cruising content because it's been a while, and river cruising content for me is quite popular. So I've been revisiting kind of European river cruising. I've also been revisiting a lot of the premium ships. I mentioned I was on Princess. I've been on Holland America and Celebrity and stuff. Although next year I'm revisiting them again because they're changing so fast, and the resort ships. And then also I've, as I mentioned earlier, I've been focusing on the kind of luxury, ultra luxury. So I've been back on Regent, Silversea, Crystal, and so on. So I've kind of been revisiting that, and then sort of also looking at, because tips, general tips for me do really well. So I've actually been back revisiting a couple of key themes, like dining, for example. It's been a while since I revisited dining, and dining has changed and evolved so much. So it's kind of a mixture of lines and so on. Like I'm doing a series at the moment of looking at each of the categories and doing a comparison for all the lines. So my one on premium lines is out, the resort ones comes out. In fact, just today I finished recording the one for ultra luxury. I need to do the luxury group. So I'm kind of revisiting some of those more kind of help people choosing the right category, the right ship. So quite a lot, I guess, is a short answer as well. Yeah.
Well, you are either the most followed or one of the most followed cruise channels in the world. But just for those few of us who are not hip to tips for travelers, tell us how can our listeners follow you on social media and the internet and YouTube?
Yes, I mean, I'm most active on YouTube with Tips for Travelers. So my channel's spelled with two L's, but in reality, if you put Tips for Travelers with one L, YouTube, bring that up anyway.
I know that well because in writing about you and then preparing for my podcasts that you have been on over the years, that still comes up as an autocorrect when I write Travelers with two L's. So.
Right. I mean, I actually have the URL. I actually have like the URL Travelers with one L and stuff, but it is the YouTube channels with two L. So that's where I'm most active there. So I post a video most weeks. So it's normally one a week, and I try and do a weekly live stream as well, a Q&A live stream. Then I'm also very active on Instagram. So when I'm on a trip, I post lots of stories. So like on the Silversea trip I was on, the reason I know I did over 200 stories on that trip was because when I save it into collections on Instagram, you can only put 100 per collection. And I filled up 2 lots of things by the end of the trip. Wow. But I'm very active with stories where I post lots about the ship, the food, the entertainment stuff. And then Facebook for me is very active as well. So those are the 3 main ones, and they're all. Instagram is Gary Bembridge, but Facebook is Tips for Travelers. That's pretty active. Yeah, and then I do also run a Patreon as well for kind of the diehard fans, where I do kind of bonus content for them as well, which is sort of behind a paywall. Yeah.
So let's talk about the future. Now I know because we talked a little bit about it, your first cruise, I don't know if it's your first cruise, but your next group cruise is in January, right? That's the Holland America. Do you have anything between now and January?
Yeah. So I have 2 trips before then, because I do roughly once a month, roughly. I do a cruise. So my next, I actually have a land-based next, but then I'm doing a Regent Caribbean out of New York into Miami, which goes on Splendor, which goes to lots of islands, out of the way kind of islands, because I want to update my Caribbean content and get some more footage of islands I haven't been to. I was originally supposed to be doing West Africa, but I canceled that because you have to, some of the ports you went to, you had to have a yellow fever vaccine, and my oncologist really didn't want me to have that, so I decided to not do that one. So I changed it to the Caribbean. Then I'm doing over Christmas, so December, we're doing an Oceania Riviera from Sydney, Australia, across to Papeete in French Polynesia. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's an 18-night there. Then the next one is the group cruise. Then I looked at it, I think I've got 17 currently booked. So after that, I do I'm doing a circumnavigation of South America, also on Holland America. So I do Holland America, Saturday, and then about a month later, when I get back, a couple of weeks later, I'm doing a circumnavigation around South America on the Oosterdam. So that should be pretty good. What else have I got next year? So I've also a couple of ships I want to try. So next year I'm also doing Norwegian Aqua out of New York. I'm doing the Brilliant Lady out of Miami. But I'm also
when are you doing? Excuse me. When are you doing Brilliant Lady?
not towards. I think it's about September time.
Okay.
Once it's finished Alaska. Once it's
Okay.
back from Alaska. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm on Brilliant Lady in March.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Brilliant Lady, because I've been on Scarlet Lady, but I haven't been on seeing what they've done.
Yeah, Scarlet Lady is the one that I did the transatlantic on.
Right.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm doing. Then I've got a Queen Mary 2 transatlantic, which I haven't done for a while because I want to update that. Then I'm doing Celebrity out of New York through Canada, New England. Because actually, when I did the group cruise Canada, New England, I didn't see many of the ports because I was busy with group cruise stuff. So I'm actually sort of going to many of the ports before, but then it goes to Greenland, ends up in Iceland. Then I'm doing the Windstar sailing ship, which I haven't done before, which I really want to try. Then I've got repositioning on Crystal, because again, that was incredibly good value to do the ship I haven't been on. And I've actually just booked a Papeete through Hawaii to Vancouver as well, and Vancouver to Japan. So loads of stuff coming up. So yeah,
Wow,
and quite a big mix. So I've got next year. I've got a mixture of revisiting a lot of the premium lines, trying some of the new ships, like Aqua, which I want to try. I've done Viva, and then some kind of destinations and routes that I haven't done before, like Hawaii, but Malaysia, that kind of stuff.
Now you alluded to a land trip. We like those too. We just did a land trip to Las Vegas, which I'm sure most people have been to. But this was kind of special because I've been taken by the new Sphere, and I wanted to see that in person, and we actually got to see a show there. Where's the land trip you're going to?
Well, exactly. We're flying tomorrow, as we record this, to Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually going to the Sphere to see the Oz, the Wizard of Oz on
Sunday.
Okay.
Well, we saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm quite looking forward to that. And then going to Palm Springs for about 10 days. Actually, one weekend we're going to LA because we take my mother-in-law with us. And so we're taking her to see the Hollywood sign and Warner Brothers studio tour and that sort of stuff. Back to Palm Springs, then back to Vegas, and then back. So it's just over 2 weeks. So it's a Vegas and Palm Springs. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and
love Vegas.
When are you going?
Tomorrow, as we're recording, flying tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you'll already be there when this airs. Okay. Because
exactly.
I was gonna say, check out my. Although it's gonna be, I can't remember when it is. You'll be. That'll be well behind you when it airs, but we'll do a short reflections podcast about our trip to Vegas. So
great.
Okay, for someone who seemingly has done it all and still doing it all, 17 cruises in the foreseeable future, what's left on your bucket list? The problem, the more you do, the longer your list gets. It never gets shorter. Just people and stuff. I'm finding that the case as well.
Yeah, it's very true. So there are a couple of things. I would like to do some more river cruising. I'd like to do river cruising in India, China, and I would like to do some in the US, like the Mississippi and stuff like that. I would like to do more of Africa. So particularly the west coast of Africa is more challenging with the yellow fever, but there are some itineraries I've seen which don't call on as many of those ports. But I would also like to do the other side. I've never been to India. So I would like to go to India, and there's more cruises also opening up in India. So particularly some that leave there, so you can do pre kind of and post date. Also very high on my bucket list, but I've actually booked this one. The others I haven't booked yet. Is I wanted to go to the southern part of Antarctica to the Ross Sea ice shelf, which I am doing in the beginning of 27 on Ponant out of New Zealand, which I'm very excited about. But I also want to cruise a little bit. I've been to Australia quite a few times, but more land-based, and I want to do more kind of circumnavigation stuff of that. So those are kind of the big ones on my list. So, and the list, I know the list will get longer and longer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, it is great to reconnect. However, we're not done. Before we let you go, I always like to ask a couple of light, dare I say, even fun questions, cruise questions. So let me start off by saying welcome to the Tips for Travelers fans and friends listening. Gary, so that your fans and friends and my listeners can get to know you just a little better. Let me ask a few questions that I ask repeat guests. First one is kind of an easy one. Call it a softball. Tell our listeners and your friends, how do you spend your me time?
So a couple of things. I am slightly obsessed with Peloton. So I will do Pelotons most days. A lot of people ask me, with all the cruising I do, how do I manage to kind of keep myself weights under control? So I do Peloton most days. I also like cycling. I've got slightly addicted to e-bikes. I'm sure you've seen them, Lime bikes and all those kind of bikes. So particularly heading into winter, less so, but I do quite a lot of e-bike stuff. So I'll head off on the weekend, like Mark and I will say, right, let's go to this part of London, and we'll just spend the day cycling around and exploring stuff. So I really like that, and I do like watching. I'm very into science fiction, particularly. So I watch quite a lot of, kind of shows, science fiction shows or movies and stuff like that. So those are the main things I do.
Okay, well, we'll actually ask you about some of those shows. What are you listening to right now in terms of music, podcasts, or audiobooks?
So I actually never listen to audiobooks, to be honest, but I am a huge podcast listener. But most of my podcasts are mostly politics podcasts. So I listen to a lot of politics podcasts and business podcasts. I'm still very interested in business. So pretty much all of my podcasts are politics and business. So and there's actually some very good, certainly, for UK-based ones, there's some really good ones which are either ex-politicians or people who are very involved. And I really like listening to these podcasts where they've got, because the danger you can get into a little echo chamber, whether you're left, right, or whatever, you get stuck in echo chambers. What quite a big trend in the UK is they'll have like someone who's from the Conservatives, Labour, Lib Dems, Reform, and they are a little group and they discuss it. So you get all sides of the story. So I listen to a lot of that. But I listen to podcasts all the time. I really love them. In terms of watching, I watch a lot of, as I mentioned, science fiction stuff. So the good news, so I've subscribed to far too many things, Amazon Prime and Netflix and stuff. So I watch a lot of those. I've just sort of binge watched kind of lots of series and that. In terms of music, I like a lot of contemporary music. So I do every Friday, for example, Amazon Music list all the brand new music.
Right.
Every Friday I listen to all of that. Like I think this Friday there's 80 songs or something. Every Friday I will listen to all the 80 songs, and I create all these playlists of songs. So I'm very into mostly kind of pop music more than anything else. But I listen to a lot of contemporary, like what's hot now kind of stuff, music.
Okay. So you mentioned science fiction. I was going to ask you about television and movies. Anything to turn our listeners on to?
The problem is people will probably groan a bit, but I'm a big Star Trek fan. So I've just literally binge watched the last season of Brave New Worlds, which is on Paramount. I'm actually currently kind of watching Peacemaker, which is the second season that's just come out, which is part of the DC kind of universe and kind of the revamped stuff. The other shows that I've watched recently that I've really enjoyed is both Netflix shows, one which is Sirens and the other The Waterfront, which are sort of more kind of drama stuff. Those I would say are worth a look at. They're pretty interesting. Yeah.
Speaking of Netflix, did you watch like most of the Cruising World? Whatever happened, or I can't remember the exact name of it. Whatever happened to Amy Bradley?
I haven't watched. I watched almost none of the cruise documentary stuff. I probably should watch that one because that one certainly more. But I tend to avoid them because I often find they always have such a big agenda behind them, and it kind of winds me up a bit. But I think that one I probably should watch. I was talking to someone the other day about that, and I feel I should probably watch that and understand that. Often because a lot of these things I've read about them a lot. That case I didn't know a lot about, so I probably should do. But no, I haven't watched it yet.
I will say it was. I think it was over dramatized by Netflix. But I'll let you be the judge of that. Next time I have you on, and there will be a next time unless you say, "Oh, that's enough." But you have an open invitation. But the next time I have you on, I'll get your thoughts about Amy Bradley. I just thought it was kind of overdone. Much ado about nothing. I mean, I there's a lot of people. I'm sure you know the backstory. There's a lot of people who believe she's alive. I just think she went overboard. Hey, let's have a little fun, or it could be a little disaster. In a recent episode, totally unplanned, a guest turned the tables on me and asked me a couple of questions I wasn't prepared for. That's why I said it could be a disaster, but it turned out to be a lot of fun. So I incorporated it for three-time guests like you. I had to come up with some different questions for three-time guests. So rapid fire style, ask away 2 or 3 questions you have for me.
Yeah, one of them is a fairly simple. Well, maybe not a simple one. Is what is the best show or your favorite show that you've seen at sea? Maybe there isn't one. Maybe you don't even have one.
Any of the aqua shows on the Royal Caribbean, Oasis and what's the new class, Icon class?
Yeah.
I haven't been on the Icon class, but I've been on a couple of Oasis class. I just don't think, I don't think they can be matched by any other cruise line. I will say, I went. Since you're going to Vegas, this gives me an opportunity an excuse to talk about this. I did see a show in Vegas last week called O. And
that's fantastic.
You've seen it?
I've seen it twice. Yeah. I think it's
okay.
Fantastic.
So that's no.
I also said, did you ever? They used to have an equivalent show called La Rev at the Wynn, which closed during the pandemic and never reopened, which was similar, which is incredible.
Yeah.
As well.
I was going to say Royal with their aqua shows are in a class about no cruise line can touch them. However, O can touch them. O is amazing, and the water, stage and the waterworks, whatever. I would say wider at O than it is on the Oasis Icon class, but it wasn't as high as it is on. So I thought that the aqua shows on Royal they focus more on acrobatics and athleticism, whereas O focus more on ballet. Obviously Cirque du Soleil it's going to have a fair amount of acrobatics, but it was more ballet. Is this a word, balletic? I don't know if that's a word or not. And artistic than the aqua shows. But I would say the best shows, hands down, are the aqua shows.
Yeah, they are mind-boggling. The other question I had is, if you won the lottery, and so money was no object, what is the cruise that you would do?
Well, the probably the easy answer to that, kind of a trite answer is a world cruise. But I know a world cruise is not in my future because there's no way in the world I would get my wife to be on the water for that long. And I have no desire to do a world cruise, nor would I ever try to do a world cruise solo. But I would guess if money was no object, though, I probably could talk my wife into a world cruise. But yeah, that would be my my ultimate cruise is a world cruise.
Yeah, I mean the other way you could maybe convince her is because I've sort of looked at the idea. It'd be great to do a world cruise, but we once looked at ended up instead of getting on one ship and staying on one ship, we're saying actually another way of doing it would be to break it up yourself and say actually the best itinerary through Asia is on line X.
Right.
Then you kind of get off, spend some time and land in Tokyo, I don't know, Tokyo or something. Then you say, actually, there's a great trip that goes from Tokyo to Alaska. So you take that one. And so you actually, you break it up. So you're not just on one ship, but that becomes, of course, if money's no object, it's a little bit easier to do. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Great.
You're right. In fact, Asia, I have not done Asia yet. And so that's on my bucket list. And so if I could do a world cruise like you described, sometime on the water, spend a week, even 2 weeks in a city, I just can think of all kinds of, yes, I'd like to see the world facilitated by a cruise ship. Let me put it that way.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Great, good.
Gary, it has been great reconnecting. Thank you so much for coming back on the Joy of Cruising podcast. As one of the top cruise personalities in the world, as I mentioned earlier, you have an open invitation. So I am sure we will have you back if you will be back.
Absolutely.
As I have said before, after I am done speaking with you, I feel smarter about cruising. Continued all the best to you and tips to travelers. And as I like to say, we will see you on the ocean.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. I appreciate you having me on.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.